Have you ever wondered, or maybe asked someone, why it's so incredibly hard to leave a relationship with a narcissist, even when it seems so obvious from the outside that things are toxic? Well, it's a question that a lot of people struggle with, but the answer has very little to do with willpower or strength. It's all about a powerful, invisible bond. So let's get into it.
I can't. I feel trapped. It's like a drug. I mean, these are the actual words people use to describe it. And they really get to the heart of the matter, don't they? This isn't just feeling sad about a breakup. This is feeling psychologically imprisoned. And it's not a sign of weakness. It's the direct result of some very specific, very powerful psychological mechanisms that we're going to break down right now.
So to really get a handle on this, we're going to look at the architecture of this invisible prison. First, we'll talk about the prison itself. Then, we'll dive into the mental conflict it creates. After that, we'll explore how hope itself can become an addiction, how pain, paradoxically, forges a bond, and finally, how the guilt trap is what really locks that door shut.
Okay, first things first. We need to be really clear. We are not talking about physical chains or locked doors here. The prison is entirely psychological. It's a labyrinth built from hidden forces that are designed, whether consciously or not, to make the very idea of leaving feel completely and utterly impossible.
So, what's the foundation of this prison? Where do the first bricks get laid? Well, it all starts with a state of constant, exhausting mental conflict. And the first key psychological mechanism behind this has a name: cognitive dissonance.
So what is cognitive dissonance, really? Simply put, it's that deeply uncomfortable, high-stress feeling you get when you're trying to hold two completely contradictory ideas in your head at the exact same time. Your brain absolutely hates this feeling, and it will do almost anything to resolve the conflict. And that right there, that's the opening where the manipulation really takes root. And here's exactly what that conflict looks like in these relationships. You've got two totally different pictures of the same person. On one hand, you have the memory of this charming, attentive, loving partner, the one you fell for. But on the other hand, you have the daily reality of a partner who is cold, manipulative, and often cruel. Your mind just can't reconcile these two opposing images.
And you have to understand, this confusion is no accident. It's actively created and maintained through a very predictable four-step cycle. It starts with that intense love-bombing phase, which is idealization. Then it shifts to constant criticism and nitpicking. That's devaluation. Then comes the cold, cruel discard. And just when you start to recover, they suck you back in with what's known as hoovering. The entire cycle is designed to keep you off balance, always hoping that the good version will finally return for good.
Now, this constant push and pull, this roller coaster cycle, does more than just confuse you. It actually creates a powerful addiction. And the psychological principle that explains this addiction is called intermittent reinforcement. And this concept is absolutely crucial to understanding the whole dynamic. It's the principle that an unpredictable pattern of rewards creates a much stronger dependency than a consistent one. It's that very uncertainty, the maybe this time feeling, that gets us hooked.
The easiest way to think about it is like a slot machine. You don't keep pulling that lever because you win every single time. Of course not. You keep pulling it because you might win on the next try. In the relationship, those rare moments of affection and kindness, they become the jackpot. And you're conditioned to just keep playing, to endure all the losses for that slim chance of another win.
And a very common tactic for this is something called breadcrumbing. The narcissist will toss out these tiny, insignificant morsels of affection. You know, a random text message, a quick compliment. It's just enough to keep that hope alive. These little breadcrumbs are those unpredictable rewards that fuel the addiction and make you work harder and harder for something real that, frankly, is never coming.
Okay, so when you combine this deep mental conflict with a powerful addiction to hope, something even more profound starts to happen. It creates this deep, almost paradoxical attachment that we call a trauma bond. And this is the part that's so tough for people on the outside to wrap their heads around. The bond isn't formed in spite of the abuse, it is forged because of it. It's the intense roller coaster, the agony of the abuse followed by the sudden relief of a kind word or gesture that creates this incredibly powerful connection. The abuser becomes the source of both the pain and the comfort from that pain.
And let's be clear, this is not just an emotional thing. This is physiological. It's happening in your brain chemistry. This cycle of stress and relief floods your system with a cocktail of hormones: cortisol, dopamine, oxytocin. It literally rewires your brain's attachment pathways, bonding you to the very source of the chaos. It's a deep-seated survival response, which is why it's often compared to Stockholm Syndrome, where a captive forms an attachment to their captor. So, let's recap. We have confusion, we have addiction, and we have a deep physiological bond. What's the final piece of this puzzle? What's the element that slams the prison door shut and throws away the key? It's the strategic manipulation of guilt.
You provoked me. If you were just a little different, I wouldn't have to act this way. Sound familiar? The narcissist systematically shifts every ounce of blame for their own abusive behavior onto the victim. And after you hear these things over and over again, a part of you starts to believe it. You start to think that maybe the abuse is your fault, and that you alone hold the responsibility for fixing it.
So let's put it all together and look at the whole structure. The cognitive dissonance creates a constant fog of confusion. The intermittent reinforcement creates a behavioral addiction to hope. The trauma bonding forges a deep physiological attachment to the abuser. And then, finally, that weaponized guilt comes in and convinces the victim that they don't just feel like they can't leave, they feel like they shouldn't leave. It's a perfect trap.
And really, this is why it is so crucial to understand these dynamics. It helps us see that the question, why don't they just leave, is completely the wrong question to ask. The real question is, how can we better understand the immense power of the manipulation they are under? And that small shift in perspective changes everything. It moves us from a place of judgment to a place of empathy.
So I'll leave you with this to think about. Now that we can actually see the invisible bars and the psychological locks, now that we understand the architecture of this prison, how does this knowledge change our approach? How can we use what we've learned to offer real, meaningful, and effective support to those who feel so completely and utterly trapped inside?